Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. For those who I haven't spoken to before, I'm Theo. I make up part of the strategic accounts team here at FE fundinfo. I'll give everyone another couple of minutes before I kick things off. But today's session is really going to be going through our end-to-end attitude to risk journey in Nexus, how it can plug into our other tools, and how that streamlined approach can look. Bit of housekeeping. Everyone is kind of muted as a default, but if you do have any questions as we go, please do just use the chat box or question box in the top hand corner of the GoToWebinar app. One of my colleagues will be answering questions as we go, and I'll make sure to leave enough time at the end to go through a Q&A as well. Don't worry about making too many notes or anything. We'll make sure that our team follows up with a copy of this, as well as any kind of further material and assistance you guys might need to make sure you actually can start using everything that I go through properly. Cool. As a very brief agenda, I'll give a very broad overview of Nexus, which is really our FE Analytics, FE Cash Calc, and FE Advisor asset tools, all kind of pulling together under one umbrella, with the core focus of today's session being going through that attitude to risk journey. So I'll go through at the very front end using our client portal, how you can begin to onboard your new clients, and alongside any digital fact finds and document exchange, you can get them to complete an attitude to risk, which is the E-value 1 to 5. And again, I'll go on to that in a bit more detail. As part of that onboarding, you can also go through your capacity for loss and knowledge and experience questions. And I would also touch upon our new AI tool that we are currently trialing with beta users at the moment. I'll go into a bit of detail on that, but if you are interested in hearing more about our AI kind of fact find tool at the moment, please do drop a message in the chat and we can go through it in a bit more detail. After you've completed that front end attitude to risk work, we're going to push that through to FE Analytics to ensure that it is aligned to your central investment proposition. So what we will find is that if your client, say, comes out as a cautious investor, what the system will do is say which of the portfolios within your FE Analytics system or your central investment proposition will be most appropriate for that client, given their level of risk and given your kind of understanding of the client when going through the capacity for loss and knowledge and experience questions. At that point, I'll kind of show how you could go off and do a bit more of a deep dive research if you want to go off panel, or just do whatever kind of deep diving you might like on other parts of the tool before producing that kind of client friendly report that you can send back to the client through our portal, and then also bringing this to life in a cash flow before finishing with a Q&A at the end there. So brief overview, I won't spend too much time on this, but it's a little bit about FE fundinfo. We try to service the entire investment ecosystem, so not just on the wealth side of things with the kind of 4,200 financial advice firms, but also in the institutional world. We've got direct relationships with nearly all of the big kind of fund managers, banks and brokers, platforms, life and pensions companies, and so on, which really does put us in the position to kind of serve all parts of the ecosystem. And what we're really trying to do is make sure that all of the data that we collaborate and validate on the left-hand side here through the asset management section, we can connect across to the distribution network, i.e. you guys, to make your kind of processes as streamlined as possible, right the way through from our onboarding and engagement session in the Cash Calc portal, before you do your research within FE Analytics, and then bringing that all to life in your kind of forward-looking cash flow and projections in there. We're really going to be focusing on the wealth side of things today for obvious reasons. Most people would hear presumably on the kind of wealth management side of things. And just as a quick kind of recap, our Nexus solution is really FE Cash Calc, which is predominantly known as a cash flow tool, but does a lot more that I'll come into a little bit. FE Analytics, which I'm guessing most people on this call are probably aware of as our research tool, but also the crucial part about analytics I'll probably touch upon today is how you can align your attitude to risk outcome with your central investment proposition within the FE Analytics tool. And then I'll also signpost advisor asset to do that actual kind of platform due diligence and switching as well. So once you have determined the best portfolio for your client based on their risk outcome, what is the best platform for them as well, is that kind of final step of the journey. So really, this is how we at FE kind of see the client advisor journey. Would be really interested to hear your guys' feedback, whether you think there are other areas that are important. I know kind of letters of authority and things like that are quite a big one at the moment that we are trying to plug in. So watch this space. But as of now, this is our kind of broad workflow that I will be going through today, right the way through the onboarding and client discovery within the portal, including the attitude to risk. pushing that through to actually start creating some new advice and a potential switching report if you don't think that their current portfolio is appropriate for them given their level of risk, let's say. Send that back to the client to digitally accept before actually executing that investment, and then providing those annual reports. And the crucial point is once your data is on the system, it'll be able to flow the right way through. So whether you're using IntelliFlow or Xplan or different other kind of third-party onboarding software, whenever you've got the information on your back office system or indeed in any of our tools, the data should be able to flow the whole way through to save you guys any time on rekeying in that information. I will leave it here for now and actually jump into a quick presentation I've got on the tool itself. I'll begin by kind of going through this just so I don't just kind of type in loads of things as we go. I can focus on communicating, and then I will jump into the actual tool at the end just to kind of clarify anything if there are any questions. But broadly speaking, as I mentioned, what we are trying to create is Nexus. This is kind of a mock-up of what it will look like. Appreciate it's kind of fairly small here, but really what we want to do is have a platform that sits above Cash Calc, Analytics, Advisor Asset, our Nexus AI, and the investment planner, which I'll be going through today. So instead of having to log into these different tools, we'll have something that sits across the top. And hopefully using agentic AI, you'll be able to just say, I want to produce a cash flow report for Mr. and Mrs. Client. Please put in the relevant information from our fact finds that the AI has already recorded, and from any other kind of information you've got on the tool, and it should really help you do a lot of that work. Nexus at the moment is really made up of Analytics, Cash Calc, and Advisor Asset. And again, I won't go into too much detail on this. Analytics is our predominantly used for kind of portfolio research and analysis, but today it's also going to be used to show the attitude to risk and portfolio risk linking. Cash Calc is that client portal at the front end and onboarding, and then also a kind of a top of the end cash flow modeler using the gross cash flow. And I'll go through some of the changes we've got coming there as well. Finally, Advisor Asset, which is included within all analytics licenses. I'll quickly just jump across and show you guys where that is because a lot of people kind of missed that it did come. It will just be under this platform analysis tools on the left-hand side of the analytics home screen. So any of you guys who already have analytics licenses, please do have a look in there. It's a really useful way of just as a starting point determining what platforms you and your business might want to use, and then a way of demonstrating that you have done that different due diligence and you've performed the appropriate kind of analysis if you are wanting to move your clients across different platforms. But as mentioned, today the main thing I'm going to be going through is that attitude to risk journey. So right the way through from the client portal, getting all of that client information in before exporting that to FE Analytics and aligning it to your central investment proposition. So this is the very first step that we saw in that kind of client journey bit, which is getting your clients set up on the client portal. So this is a mock-up of what this portal would look like. It's available on apps as well if your clients would prefer to use phones or iPads or anything like that. The portal would have your own logo and the web address at the top read your company's kind of branding first before anything to do with Cash Calc or Nexus or FE. So to all intents and purposes, it would look like your portal. It's really simple. You would just kind of invite your clients across to this portal. They would log in and they may have a number of kind of actions that they need to take. So in this example, we've had a net worth statement has pulled through from their back office system. Maybe that's an IntelliFlow, an Xplan, a Curo, whoever. That's all pulled in, and we've got a few actions to complete. So in this case, as they've already got a net worth, maybe it is a client that you are revisiting, so it's not necessarily brand new. So you don't need to do a fully fleshed out fact find. So maybe in this example, it is a pre-populated fact find. And all you're really asking your clients to do is just to review that information ahead of your yearly review meeting with them, just to ensure that there haven't been any kind of wide scale changes or anything that would need you to take action. I've also sent across an identity check, a sustainable investing questionnaire, which is our kind of ESG questionnaire, and then an example cash flow report as well. But for now, I'm just going to be going through this attitude to risk. And how this attitude to risk works. So it's the E-value 1 to 5 outcome, 13 questions, all designed to be kind of as simple as possible so my nan could understand. And it's just a standard kind of 30 questions. Your client would put in the answers to each of these. And then the final point is the investment term, which does kind of differentiate. If I just click back here slightly, it does slightly differentiate e-value from some of the other attitudes risks out there. Is that the belief is that if you have got a cautious investor investing over a 15-year period, that would look a little bit different to a cautious investor who maybe only has 5 years they want to return. Maybe you wouldn't even invest in the first place for those sort of clients. So that's a point to note there. So it's really 15 outcomes. We then come across to the capacity for loss and knowledge and experience questions. So this is the really key bit that the FCA does actually need you to demonstrate that you have had a conversation. The attitude to risk, to a degree, is kind of up to the advice firm whether or not they want to do that. But the capacity for loss and knowledge and experience is absolutely critical. And in this example here, we have got the client to fill out those examples ahead of the review meeting. They've submitted this. They have got their outcome here. So they have been told that they are a moderate term investor based on the e-value asset allocation kind of came out with what that would look like. But the crucial point is that is just what the client initially sees. It is still completely on the advisor to confirm whether or not they agree with that outcome. So maybe you would be more comfortable in just sending the client and attitude to risk questions, and the actual knowledge and experience capacity for loss you'd rather go through in person at that meeting, and then you can adjust the result accordingly. So the action needed from the advisor here would be to review that completed attitude to risk that Keith Baker's come across. And all you would need to do as the advisor is essentially say, I've read all of this, I've spoken with the client about their knowledge and experience and capacity for losses, and I either agree or disagree with the system's output. I think the more common case is not necessarily to argue whether they're a cautious, moderate, or adventurous investor. It's often the case that it is the time horizon that advisors, from the feedback that I've got, that advisors kind of talk to their clients about. A lot of people might think they're only investing for 10 years, but really after a conversation, it becomes more apparent that it is a longer term investment. So all the power is ultimately on the advisor. For those who aren't familiar with this screen here, this sits within the cash calc system, as does the client portal. Every one of your clients would have a screen that looks like this. So you can see across the top, you've got some information tabs, fact find, how you go into the cash flow and things like that as well. The main crucial point to note here is the integrations tab. So within this client record, if you like, there are two-way integrations with most of the big back office players. So as I keep mentioning, your IntelliFlow, your Xplan, Curo, people like that. So no matter whether you're getting the information through CashCalc and wanting to push that back to your back office, or you are doing the onboarding through some other third party, or even kind of via paper and pen and manually, you can import that data into CashCalc as well to carry on this journey. And that journey might be looking like exporting the models into analytics to do some research. It might be just immediately pre-populating a cash flow report, or it might be, in this case, getting the attitude to risk answer and exporting this to FE Analytics to then say that, yeah, my client is a risk level 3, but now let's align that to my central investment proposition and determine exactly which is the most appropriate portfolio for that client. So this screen here is called the investment planner, and it's within FE Analytics. Again, I'll quickly just jump across and show you guys where that is. But it is included with all FE Analytics licenses in here, and it is the next stage of the attitude to risk journey. So after you've done all the onboarding, you've got all the data, the next step is kind of aligning that risk profile. So we have a bit of a recap here of the questions and answers that were given. And then if I press play, the next step is to click on that suitable portfolios. So what we have got in here, and this is the screen I'll probably spend a bit of time explaining, and if there are any questions, please do put in the chat. But the way that we risk link portfolios is based on the FE risk score. And for those who aren't familiar, the FE risk score is really 100 is FTSE, 0 is cash, and every other score, every other portfolio will have an indicative FE risk score based on that kind of methodology. And if you have a look at FE Analytics under the guides and things, there's more detailed methodology on exactly how the risk score is calculated and things like that. But what we have in this outcome is our client has come out as a moderate investor over a medium time horizon, so 8 to 15 years and moderately adventurous. We think that kind of makes up an indicative FE risk score of between 65 and 75. So what you would have the option to do here is either to only configure the system so that your portfolios that have a risk score between this would come up, and you would just select one of those options. Or in this case, I think we've loaded in a whole bunch of different kind of Vanguard life strats with varying different risk scores, but the advisor would probably choose one that is as closely aligned to this as possible, because that is the methodology that we're going through. So between 65 and 75, maybe we'd invest in this FEI model in here. And yeah, it's completely down to the firm's discretion how you want to do this. I've worked with some groups who do want to make this fairly tight. So all the different advisors within the group follow a repeatable process. Other groups do like to give a little bit more flexibility and want the advisors to have the option to do some more kind of widespread research at this point. So at this point in the journey, you may well want to jump back to FE Analytics to do a bit more of a detailed research into the specific portfolio versus what they are currently invested in. Or if you want to stay within the investment planner interface, that is also absolutely fine. And as you can see from this kind of overview here, you've got a kind of a nice side-by-side comparison, just going through the different holdings, the performance stats, risk and ratios, and a breakdown of things like that. So a fairly kind of high-level overview report. But again, if you've already decided upon your central investment proposition, you probably don't need to do a detailed deep dive into the actual model each time, and maybe this high-level preview would be enough. Once you have got to this point, you can include all of that kind of history within a report, generate that report, and then you can send that back to the client through the client portal to kind of finish that loop. And that's the last step that we'll go through on this kind of presentation before I jump into the actual tool itself. So you'd upload this to your cash calc system, potentially upload it to your back office as well, send this document across to the client, and then within that client portal, the client will have the attitude to risk outcome. They'll be able to view that, and they will be able to accept that agreement using our digital kind of signature. So that's really the attitude to risk end-to-end journey in a very kind of structured way if you don't go off-piste. And again, that is not just for new clients coming in, that could be for a yearly review meeting or making up the basis of that review. So as a quick recap, we've gone through the client portal, through cash calc that every client has the option of accessing. You've gone through the attitude to risk questions, you've got the capacity for loss and knowledge and experience answers. You as the advisor has then aligned that to the central investment proposition, and you've been able to put all of that in a report to send back to the client to review for later use. So that's kind of one stage of the front end journey. Of course, at any point within that, you could have jumped into FE Analytics to do a portfolio comparison report, for instance, to do a nice side-by-side comparison. Or also what I wanted to kind of touch upon was potentially the next step in that journey, which is coming across to advisor asset and saying, yeah, I've decided the most appropriate portfolio, but can I also decide which is the most appropriate platform for that client? Once we have done that, we'll then jump across to cash calc and really bring that story to life in a bit more detail. So I'll click on the consolidation switch analysis for now and kind of just run through this at a high level. But it's well worth having a play around on this part of the tool if you do have an analytics license already. As I mentioned before, there are three main reports. The first is just the due diligence to determine what platforms you actually want to use. Once you have done that and you have determined the platforms, you could just put it in on the left-hand side here to say that, yep, I'm only going to be using these 5 or 6 platforms. I've got special terms with Aviva, Fidelity, whoever. You could build those in as well. And the crucial kind of benefit of this consolidation analysis tool over some of the others is that it's fully integrated with FE Analytics. So you have the option to put all of your models within your central investment proposition. You can upload those to Advisor Asset to make it that kind of streamlined piece of research. And to go through a piece of research, it is kind of really simple to do because of that integration piece. All you have to do is put in some basic information, i.e. client's age, what age you want the analysis to run to, and then just some information on the seeding schemes here that the client has got. And again, if you're integrated with FE Analytics, the client's portfolio will pull across. The main kind of exciting bit we've got in here is the ability to determine how you want to do the reduction in yield. So if from the providers you get back the reduction yield as a percentage, you can put that number in. If you just get projected growth back, you could do that. Or if you just get the charges, you put that back in. So it's really whatever format the providers give you that information from letters of authority coming back and things. You could input that into the system, press continue. And once you've done that for the seeding schemes, it's really simple just to align your portfolios to the different kind of wrappers, whether it's an ISA or pension, add in advisor fees and anything like that before clicking next. And what the system is currently doing is some whole of market research to determine what the most appropriate platform would be for this client. So maybe this client came in a very passive Vanguard fund or something. You have gone through the attitude to risk journey with them. You've determined that there is a different portfolio more appropriate to their level of risk, maybe more aligned to their goals. You have gone through the risk journey to kind of justify that change from a risk perspective, but also you're now wanting to have a look at what this looks like from a kind of switch analysis basis, and you're doing that reduction yield calculation here. And again, mine's doing some whole of market research. Maybe yours would only be for kind of 5 or 6 platforms, in which case it would load very quickly. But this whole research kind of from start to finish only takes a few minutes here. Cool. So in this example, Aegon Arc has come up as the most preferential one. So we're going to click on that. The system is going to finalize the calculations, and then it's going to produce a nice, just kind of 15-page report justifying the front end platform due diligence you've potentially already done on a yearly basis, but then crucially going into the actual kind of figures for this specific client to say that, yep, you've moved their portfolio, we've done this switch analysis, and it is actually cheaper for the client to do this switch as well. So not only is the portfolio more aligned to their risk and more in tune with their goals, but it also has this combined seeding scheme has a cheaper ROI, and you could just put that into a nice report and send that to the client in a similar way through that kind of client portal piece that we did the other report in there. So this report is a 27-page document, potentially not one that you want to send to the client, but again, it's up to your client's needs. But the crucial point is you have absolutely gone through all of the due diligence that you would need to do to kind of justify that switch. Some of you may have seen when I was going through the attitude to risk kind of section of it as well, we do also have the option to export the model to FE Cash Calc. And that's available for all of your FE analytics models. And what that does is allows you to bring this kind of process to life in a lot more kind of detail. So instead of having to just use back tested data and say, sure, the model I'm suggesting has a better 10-year performance history, a better 5-year volatility, and it is cheaper, I am going to align that to your specific goals, Mr. and Mrs. Client, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a cash flow moving forwards, excuse me. So you could export all of these models to FE Cash Calc, and that will create a variable growth template based on either a 5-year linear return, which is a simpler way of doing it, or using the underlying asset allocation of the full kind of portfolio history and aligning that to look forward. And I'll show you exactly what that can look like on Cash Calc. So as a starting point, those models that you might export would be under the growth templates part of the settings tab. So I've got a whole number of portfolios here that either myself or my colleagues within the same cash cow group and me have decided to export to the system. But we've got loads of different portfolios in here. These could be client specific, or they could be part of your central investment proposition. It's kind of up to you which ones you want to export. But what this does give you the ability to do is to do that kind of whole holistic cash flow planning piece. So you'd be able to say that, sure, we have got a situation as of right now where maybe the client is invested in a kind of a pre-advice model like this, and they are due to run out of money by age 96. Maybe as part of the fact find, maybe your AI note taker picked up that they want to be able to have at least £200,000 at mortality age to be able to pass on to their children. And as you can currently see from the inputs here, they are invested in a model achieving very little growth rate. And that might have been kind of one of the prompts for you guys to go through that attitude to risk journey in the first place. So all you would need to do in a situation like that is to clone this current situation, call this something like post ATRQ and post advice. So you have made the recommendation for the client to move providers. we have made a clone of their existing cash flow, but crucially on this second one, what we are going to do is we're going to be actively investing this money into our portfolio that we chose. So in my case, this is one of the FE investments, level 3 models. I'll select that and I'll update that on all of the different savings pots. And we should be able to see a pretty drastic return there. And then I'll just do it for order of time. I'll just do it in the investments, and even just doing that in the ISAs. So being actively invested in a model versus just leaving your money as cash or as a very passive, safe investment option. You can start looking at these side-by-side comparisons. And once you are in this lifestyle planning or cash flow bit of the journey, it really is down to your client's objectives and goals as to how much you may want to start tweaking this and aligning it to whatever outcome the client would want. So in this example, maybe they said they wanted to have at least 200,000 to give to their children. They have definitely got that. They're up to 300. So maybe in this case, you could say, do you know what? We also picked up Mr. and Mrs. clients that although you do have a lot of expenses, you also mentioned that you would love to go on a world cruise. Maybe that's a lifestyle expense. We'll call that a world cruise. It was going to be a nice one. It was going to be a one-off. It was going to cost 30 grand. So they're really going for it, like really expensive holiday. It's going to take all year. They wanted to do that just after retirement, and you can add that expense to then see, can you do that? So again, it's about making the cash flow not just such a static one-time look piece, but it's really aligning it to your client's goals and objectives, and can also make up that really powerful piece of visualizing a pre-advice and post-advice part of the tool. And it's really up to you as the advisor how many of these different scenarios you want to build. You have the option to stress test this using different kind of market simulations. So let's say in this example, of course, we have used the underlying asset allocation of this FE investment model to make up the basis of a growth rate. But that's still based on an assumption, albeit a smarter assumption than just a linear growth. But what would happen if there was a market crash at retirement age and that did affect all of the different savings pots? You'd be able to run that simulation, apply the market event, and then as you can see, despite it taking a big hit at that retirement age, the client still does have enough money because of this post-advice piece to go on a world cruise and to still have enough money to pass on to their children. And there are so many use cases of this. Again, I appreciate this wasn't a kind of a cash flow deep dive, so I won't go through too many others, but it might well be to kind of demonstrate the value of having some premium protection in place. It might be so you could show the difference in downsizing in 10 years versus downsizing in 15 years. The important point is that it is all aligned to your client's goals that hopefully you have picked up on as part of that onboarding journey. Using the fact find, using Nexus AI, using whatever other kind of onboarding strategy you are doing, you've got all of that, those soft facts, and you're able to bring this to life on the cash flow alongside the kind of more traditional advice pieces, i.e. attitude to risk and making sure that the portfolio is aligned to the client's risk, and also that charge analysis piece. Every step of this journey, we could have been creating reports. So what you could have is quite a powerful review pack that you can now go through with your client. You've got the attitude to risk journey piece with a portfolio comparison, kind of demonstrating all of their questions and answers, and then that research bit as well. You've got the platform switching reports as well to say that, yep, sure, it's great that we've moved their investment, but we also want to make sure we have done the appropriate due diligence in terms of the platform switch as well. And we have now also got a cash flow report that we could just load up as a PDF to say that, thank you, Mr. and Mr. Client, this is what was your current situation when you came to us. I have done all this research. I've suggested that you move models, change platforms, and this is your post-advice piece, while also being able to facilitate the life that you would want to live. And in a very similar way to the client portal at the front end, all of these reports will have your logo, will have the advisor's name as they're created by. So even if it's a power planner or admin producing this report, it would still be created by the advisor. And this specific report is designed to be kind of as easy to understand as possible. So it's really just going through an overview, the highline assumptions and the current situation figures. So as you can see, savings at 100 in this example are in the negative. Go through to just a breakdown of the information that it has been used for there. and then into the charts itself, including the taxes that the system has managed to calculate using the gross cash flow, before going into exactly the same thing for our post-advice option, while also having stress tested that. So I hope that shows kind of how you could really bring the advice journey to life in a little bit more detail using our kind of our tech stack. It's a very streamlined and repeatable process as well. So if you are part of a wider group trying to establish the kind of a best practice and repeatable approach for your different clients, this could be a fantastic option. Or similarly, if you're an IFA and just want to have things as kind of as easy as possible and spend as much time as possible actually talking with your clients, and not having to do loads of kind of data rekeying or fiddling around with charts and tables all day, this could be a really nice streamlined process to make that journey as kind of simple as possible. So I appreciate this was all kind of fairly high level, and I did go through things fairly quickly on this. Do we have any questions on anything that we have gone over? I'm happy to kind of go through any examples.
A question
Glenn, I
to on
see that.
portfolios.
Yeah, sure. So portfolios, Glenn. Again, I'm not sure exactly what part of the portfolios you'd be asking about, but short answer is absolutely yes. Within FE Analytics, we have the MPS directory. Pretty much all of the kind of big DFM MPS players on the market are on here. If you want to just drop in the chat who you're using, we can just confirm whether or not they are on here. But essentially, what the MPS directory allows you to do is to click on one of these models, press the Activate Me button at the bottom, and then when you've got that, it would be on your system, although it were your own model. So in the same way as I've got this FE Invest model here, you would be able to have an Aberdeen, a Brooks McDonald, whoever it is, model on there. You'd be able to have that and then start running whatever due diligence you would want on the analytics system. You would be able to export that to cash calc to make up the growth rates. You'd be able to include that as part of your central investment proposition within Investment Planner and also within the advisor asset tools in here. So yeah, absolutely, you'd be able to get portfolio access on there. That's the first bit about MPS. The second bit is we've recently come out with a portfolio universe that is due to go live for all users very soon. And essentially, this is a way of doing whole of market due diligence or research on every kind of managed portfolio solution on the market, which is a really great way of actually nailing down what you want your central investment proposition to be. So you could start building up filters to here to say that the only portfolios you're interested in have achieved X return and have an X BIPS charging structure. It would then give you all of those outcomes, and you'd be able to then just really hone in on a couple that you'd be interested in kind of actually working with. And then through the MPS directory, you could request that Activate Me button, and it would put you in touch with somebody who works for that firm. So yeah, absolutely. The whole system is designed to be able to use for both kind of in-house models that you might build yourself, but also for any kind of MPS solutions as well. Yeah. And I think that is the only other question. I'll just jump back onto the presentation slides very quickly, just to kind of signpost and reiterate what I said, that one of our team will be in touch just to kind of see if you have any questions on anything that we have gone through. If you're interested in more sessions like this, please do feel to sign up to our series. It's a real mix what we're trying to cover. Some of them are much more kind of introductory training sessions going through getting started on analytics or cash calc. Some are designed to be a bit more kind of thought leadershipy, or to I guess kind of give you guys an idea of what it could look like if you were to use the full suite of tools. Please do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I try to post some engaging content. And if I haven't spoken to any of you guys before, thank you very much for joining. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot, guys.